What is up, Aspire Leaders? I'm so excited to be joined by a friend of the show who I met out in California, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But Jake White is my guest this week, and he started his movement after he did something quite impossible. He threw a giant party without any drugs or alcohol. And because of this, today he's talking with thousands and thousands of students all across this country to help them make great decisions for their life by creating a positive peer-to-peer youth movement, not only in local communities, but like I said, across this country. This is a powerful conversation. I can't wait to dive in as we talk about his business, Vive 18. But before we do that, I wanted to tease something out because I want you to get ready, future and current leaders, because something big is on the horizon. If you're prepared to transform your leadership journey, similar to what we talk about on this podcast for the last 8 years, I'm going to be building an exclusive, powerful community designed for those who are ready to lead with confidence, navigate complex challenges, and make a lasting impact in their role on their campus and in their district. This isn't going to be just another program. It's going to be a huge shift, regardless of where you want to go in your profession. It's truly going to be a game changer. So stay tuned for a chance to join an elite cohort that will be redefining what it means to be a leader. If you haven't joined my newsletter, make sure you do that because we're going to have the waitlist opening soon. All right, I really want to jump into this conversation with Jake White, the creator of Vive 18, as we're going to be talking about youth drug prevention, engaging strategies for youth mental health, and how as a leader we can really make an impact in substance use prevention for our students. Welcome to Aspire to Lead, where we empower educators and school leaders to grow, inspire, and thrive. I'm your host, Joshua Stamper, author, speaker, and leadership coach, bringing you conversations that spark transformation, challenge the status quo in education, and equip you to make a lasting impact on your campus or in your district. For more information and resources, visit joshstamper.com as we're looking to ascend to new leadership heights together. All right, welcome back, Aspire Leaders. I am so excited to be back once again this week, and we just appreciate all of your support and joining us as we are looking to enhance your leadership journey. And with that, I've got a special guest and a good friend, Jake White, who I had the pleasure and honor of meeting out at the Vive EDU conference or unconference or maybe event. I don't know what Kim likes to call it, but we were out there speaking and had a wonderful time in Anaheim. And Jake, it was just a pleasure to learn about all the ways that you're affecting kids, students, and of course, our education system. And with that, I want to thank you for joining Aspire to Lead.
Yeah, of course, Josh. This is cool to be on your platform since you're on my podcast too. So this is great.
Couple podcasters getting together in one space is a dangerous thing. So I was super excited not only to be on your show, but to have you on as a guest. And like I said, we just hit it off at that event. And yeah, I want to learn more about your journey. I got a little snippet there, but I also, learned about how you're working with youth all over this country, and super excited to share all the services and things that you do to help prevent really important topics. So with that, will you just share a little bit about yourself, Jake?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Jake White. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Grew up in a town called Oshkosh, Wisconsin, though, if y'all have ever heard of that town. Basically went to school. You have heard of Oshkosh?
Well, I'm from Minnesota, so I get
go.
a lot of Wisconsin geography too. Yep.
There you go. Yep. That's a little bit. My wife and I were married almost a decade. No, we reached a decade. We get to travel the country showing students how to make friends, have fun, and feel good without using substances. And that's the mark we leave on the world. And we love doing what we do.
And Jake, you did this right out of college, correct?
Yeah. So I should say it like this. I accidentally started a business in college.
I love when that happens.
I love when that happens. Yeah. So I made a choice going into school that I was not going to drink or smoke or use any drugs because I had watched some of my family members really, really struggle with it. And I spent 2 years on campus not meeting a single person who said, "Hey, Jake, that's cool. You don't use, like, neither do I." Instead, I felt super weird about it, living in the Midwest, being on a college campus, and people would act like there was something wrong with me just because I was making a healthy choice. And I read this statistic. It's called the social norm statistic. And it said that 1 out of every 3 students was just like me. And I'm thinking, what? There's no way I would have met them. There's no way this statistic is true. But what I realize is even as outgoing as I am, I stopped telling people my decision. And if they're out there, maybe they're just hiding their decision too because they're afraid of being ridiculed or judged. And I decided to throw I threw a house party without any drugs or alcohol. And I went out on campus and just invited people to this event that I had no business doing, right? But
Nice.
I wanted it. I met 129 people, and
Wow.
120 of them said yes, and they gave me their phone number. And it was crazy. 120 phone numbers on a college campus in Wisconsin that does not serve any alcohol. And so, long story short, after a semester of throwing those parties, had hundreds of students attending, and we were sponsored by big name brands like Red Bull, Pizza Hut, Subway. And students around the country started asking, hey, can you help me do this on my campus? And then high schoolers and middle schoolers asking, can you come speak at my school? Can you help us start a drug free club? And here we are, years later, reaching hundreds of students per year with this really life saving message of prevention.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about there. The college I went to was denominational in the sense that I knew that most folks weren't going to party. And I had a real frustration as a high school student of finding kind of my group that didn't make those decisions. I'm with you and wish that, I had something like that on my campus, but it doesn't just stop with college. You also support high school students too.
Yeah. Well, students everywhere are looking for positive and healthy ways to cope with life's challenges, to have fun and to feel good. So this isn't an age issue, right? It's like
Yeah.
even adults, some adults are really struggling with the fact that like they either don't have a healthy outlet to do those things or they just need help in general to do those
Hmm.
things too.
Well, the other thing too, I remember Jake when we were talking was kind of like this mental health component that was also associated with the substance use. And I know, you've talked about it with like family members. I remember seeing that with other friends and students making just horrible decisions and seeing the impact it made on their life and going, yeah, I'm not interested in that. But I also know that, folks that are struggling and maybe there's trauma or some other things that are going through chronic stress that maybe that mental health component is something that also needs to be looked at. So with that, as our leaders, our educators are thinking through this upcoming school year as we're kicking things off, what are some things that they need to do to kind of help engage youth in keeping their mental health right and healthy?
Yeah. Helping students with mental health is key. And it's key to drug prevention, it's key to suicide prevention, to attendance, all these things, which Josh,
Yeah.
like being an administrator, you lived in this world where the environment that they're surrounded by is going to influence certain behaviors or protect from certain behaviors.
Yep.
And so when it comes to mental health, anything we can do to build resilience with these students is going to pay off in so many ways, and they're going to become more successful because of it. And that's why I love social emotional learning. That's why I
Mhm.
love building resilient students. And what I like to teach educators and parents is that when it comes to building resilient students, especially when it comes to the topic of drug prevention, because it's all interconnected,
Yep.
is if we can help students build the skills for confidence, community, and coping skills, they can be resilient to pressure. Because if you have confidence, you're not going to rely on someone else to define who you are. You know who you are and what you're about. If you have community, you don't need to fit into anyone else's idea of what you need to be. You don't need to be influenced by outside sources. And then if you have coping skills, you can deal with those life challenges that come at you because you've got healthy strategies and you've been there before. You know that life doesn't get easier, but you get better. And so those things, although they might be centered around resilience or mental health, they're going to help you with everything else too.
What are some of the coping strategies that you like to provide students? Because I think that's something that a lot of our adults, educators, parents just assume like our kids will naturally possess those things. And then we get to a really hard time and then our kids do something crazy and you're like, okay, maybe we can't assume that they have these coping skills. So what are some strategies that you like to teach?
So, Josh, I have this student who probably messages me once a month with things he's learning on the guitar, with new skateboard tricks that he's trying. And what's funny is because during our assembly presentation, yes, we do substance use prevention, but we're talking about choosing skill sets over shortcuts.
Nice.
And I could rattle off, right, like coping strategies like breathing, drawing, getting outside, practicing sports, doing some squats or push ups, like when you feel a certain way, because it influences your mind and your state. But I found that whenever we mention that stuff, it's kind of like, no duh. But there's a framework to helping students understand the value of a skill set, choosing something that makes you better and a real coping skill like music, theater, art, athletics, stuff like that, reading, academics versus a shortcut. of using a substance to try to feel a certain way that in the moment might feel easier because that's how shortcuts feel. But the danger is they could cut your potential short or maybe even your life short. And so we define those things. And that's the thing mostly when we give presentations, that's what the teachers are echoing around the school and they find most valuable is the students will come up with their favorite coping skills by the hobbies and interests that they have. And it gets them bought into that process.
All right, I want to go with the substance use prevention. And every time I think of this, I always automatically go to my childhood and DARE. And I heard a comedian talk about DARE and was like, I don't think it's working because after every DARE presentation, I always thought, wow, that actually kind of sounds good. Maybe I should try it. And for you, like giving, all of this work at schools and working with students, like what is the message that you're trying to help with the prevention piece? Because it's wildly popular. It's something that a lot of kids are experimenting with using. And then, for our educators, we're probably seeing the trickle down effect of like how that's affecting their brain and how it's affecting their emotions and how their output in the educational environment. So for you, like what's your message to the students and how is it different than maybe some of the traditional models?
Yeah. So here's where the traditional models fall short is yes, they're educating you right through facts and figures and statistics.
Yep.
The problem is young people don't make decisions based on facts, figures, and statistics. That front part of the brain is not online until our mid 20s, which y'all hear this, y'all know this. But what does that mean for behavior? Is even as adults, we make purchasing decisions emotionally. Then we back up what we want in our emotions with the facts and figures. So we need to approach students the same way. They're very smart. They know the effects of these drugs. And like you said, sometimes they think, oh, that sounds really helpful. I want to relieve stress. They're thinking about the now, not the future. So what's really important, and I found the missing piece in prevention, is we don't answer the burning questions inside that student's mind if we're even able to convince them to not use a substance. Because if we do a good job and we share about these things, they're still going to have the questions. Well, if I'm not doing this, how am I going to make friends? How am I going to have fun? And how am I going to feel good? Those are those three pillars. Oh, you see them behind me right there. Is helping students answer those questions is really key. Because if we say, don't do drugs, well, what am I going to do? And that's why really combining our story of throwing drug-free parties and having it spread across the whole country, showing positive skill sets instead of shortcuts that you can have for coping skills, but also that they're going to be a part of a really good community. And this is what's been missing in the prevention field. It's all education, but we don't have that inclusion. And so what's really, really different is after our presentation, your students are going to know they're actually in the majority for making healthy, positive decisions. Most students around the country are not using. In middle school, we see upwards of 80% nationwide are not using. In high school, upwards of 50% are not using. And I get pushback because there's like the students say, like, what are you talking about? This many people don't use. Like, everyone's using. Every time I go to the bathroom, somebody is smoking or vaping. It could be the same 5, 10 kids in the bathroom. But since every time you go, someone is doing it, you assume everybody is. But our brains do that, right? I don't know if the exact psychological term, but like once you see something like a car that
Yeah.
your family bought and you notice it being driven around town, once we show students, hey, start looking for clues of the students that aren't using. Now you have some stories as well of these students throwing drug-free parties and events. You'll start noticing you're in good company and you
Yeah.
won't feel as much pressure. And then they can start their own club. That's the best thing we can help them do too, is like they spread the message throughout their school and they get involved in these things. And that's where the fun really, really begins.
Well, and middle schoolers, they tend to lie. So to look cool, they may say, hey, I do this, versus in actuality, that's not occurring. So being in the middle school for 20 years, that happened quite a bit where they weren't exactly truthful at that age. So all that being said is I love that you're hosting these like drug-free events. I'd love for you to share a little more information about just this healthy alternative, because I think that is the misperception is that so many folks, and I don't identify with, the majority of my peers, and kind of, for the YouTube audience is consuming this, you can see, behind Jake, he's got a beautiful poster there that, has those three components that most kids all kids are wanting, especially in their educational environment. So will you just share out kind of what those drug-free events look like, Jake?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple examples. So last year we worked with the school district in Wisconsin, and after speaking in all the middle schools and a couple high schools, they started a citywide group and they would throw drug-free events. And their first event was a glow volleyball tournament. So they took over the Boys and Girls Club for a night. They invited all their friends. They had Glow Volleyball. They had Just Dance, that video game going on. They had tournaments and foosball and air hockey because that place is set up for all that. So we taught them about building partnerships, getting sponsors. So they raised all the money for what they needed. They went out and they took care of it. And they put together this incredible video too to show the community that you don't need drugs to have fun, and it's launched this community program. Another one, I just got a text yesterday from one of our groups out in rural Wyoming, and it's literally a video. They're like, "Hey, Jake," and then they set up this giant slip and slide down a hill in their town, and they had a bunch of students show up for like a before school rally around prevention and mental health, and students got to do something fun, gather around community, and spread a positive message. And then recently we had a group from Tennessee that they got their group together and they actually went to the Capitol building of their state, and they got to speak to the legislators on why they need more mental health and prevention resources in the schools and help getting more funding for the school counselors and all the incredible teachers that do good work for them, day after day. So like, yeah, it looks at different things and what the students want to tackle, but they own it and they're great at influencing their peers.
So cool. Yeah. So I know that you've been speaking quite a bit with schools, and you were at 150 schools last year. So is that kind of a different model for each school and kind of their needs and what they're envision, or do you have kind of, like a package or something that school districts tap into?
Yeah, there are packages to answer your question like
Yep.
succinctly, but there's right one that's just like we just want the speaker assembly program because we're going to do all this stuff beyond that
Hmm.
ourselves. Or
Sure.
we just want a guest speaker that's doing prevention differently in a positive lens instead of the
Yep.
scare tactics and the just say no. They bring us in for that. The other one might be a package like that school I told you in Wisconsin, where I'm there for a week or sometimes multiple weeks throughout the year to really establish a strong presence for mental health and prevention in their community. And the students are equipped to lead the way. And we've got advisors, and like the whole thing is structured to outlast our simple relationship. And then afterwards, we just remain on call for any support that they need, or they enter our course and community where we're all getting together with each other and sharing ideas and cheering for each other.
So I know my listeners, especially my leaders, they take action. And so they're probably looking and saying, okay, these student led drug free clubs. I like this idea. I want to like start something up on my campus or in my school district for it. What does that model look like? And what is the kind of the most effective and efficient way of doing that?
Yeah, so our model that we've proven to work across the country includes a strategic invitation process
Nice.
and then a quick win project. So the strategic invitation, I'll break it down for you, is we want to be very inclusive, but we also want to use the exclusivity of like good marketing. So a lot of times they'll bring us out to do a speaking program. And if they know they want to start these clubs, they're going to invite select students beforehand that they know they want helping launch the club. It could be the influential students. Sometimes, though, it's the students who they need a leadership opportunity because maybe they're going down the wrong path, or maybe they see their family making decisions, and you're like, hey, this could be a really good opportunity for the student to be a part of something positive. So they get like a typed out letter and a signature at the bottom that's like, hey, you've been identified for this club. We see something in you. If you're interested, here's what you need to do, and a call to action. So it's very exclusive, right? Then comes the assembly program, which is very inclusive. So the whole school gets it. And I might invite those students on stage to make the invite to the rest of the campus. They can be a part of this too. So it's very inclusive. Everyone can be a part of it. And the third thing is a special event. And this is when we can do something that maybe it's Friday. You're all getting together at this one place, and it's a special invite for only the people who say yes. With that three-part invite, it crushes every time. The students get involved. They're so pumped up and they're ready to start their quick win project. And this quick win project is just something they can get excited about doing within the next 30 to 60 days. So it's not drawn out. They don't lose momentum. They just have to do something. And what happens is they build what is called self-efficacy, and they realize that they're game changers and world changers. And now you can educate them on leadership and prevention and mental health and advocacy and all these great things because they believe they can do something with it. And that model has worked really, really well for us.
Yeah, I love that so much. All right, you talked about a big event and having one, and that's usually like when people get super excited, but you've got a big event, prevention conference and cruise. So what's that all about?
Yeah, man. Oh my gosh. So, Josh, you know how you go to a conference, and if you're on the funding side and you see how much money goes out of the bank, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I have to budget $3,000 to $5,000 to go to this conference. So that is the same in our field. And I'm a very frugal person. So that's putting it nicely. Um, Frugal is the nice way to say it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, I'd hosted our own student-led conference the past 3 years, and it's incredible. And I was
Mhm.
like, the professionals want something for them, for professional development and prevention. There are some social workers and counselors that come too, but it's basically called the Prevention Innovators Cruise. And by hosting it on a cruise ship, we cut the cost almost in third of what they're
Oh, wow.
typical paying. Yeah, because all the food is there.
Oh,
It's
sure.
included in your lodging for the ship. You
Mhm.
get to go like a 4 or 5 day experience, travel to these amazing locations. All your entertainment, instead of taking everybody out to an escape room or something, which would cost a lot of money,
Yep.
all the entertainment and experiences are built in. Dude, some of these ships are like giant floating malls. They have thousands of rooms.
Yeah.
So you get treated like royalty and you pay the price tag of a garage sale. It's wild. So we're doing that, and we've got a bunch of really cool formats for people to share ideas. Because that was another thing. Have you ever found out, like, when you went to a conference, you learned something from a presenter that was really valuable, but then when you talked about it with your peer, this amazing idea sparked and you brought it back to your campus, and you were so fired up about who you met and what new ideas you had, but that happened in the hallway between sessions. So the cruise offers a lot of hallway time because we're having dinner together, we're going to the hot tub, we're playing mini golf, like we're going to these resort, like, cool island destinations. There's so much room for that.
Well, and I think on the flip side of it, when you go to a conference and you get all these ideas, but you don't actually have the time to sit down to build it out as far as the steps needed for it to be successful on the campus or district level. And so I think that's a lot of times you're super psyched about all this information you consumed, and then you don't really have the time to lay it out. And I think there's some frustration with that. And then, of course, the busyness of education, just things get lost due to that. And that excitement level just wanes due to stress and a lot of decisions that need to be made on the campus level. So I love the idea too that you have a team of folks that you get to collaborate with and build that out on the ship. In addition to the fact that that just sounds like an awesome event to be going to tropical locations while getting PD. Yes, please.
Right? Yes, please. Yeah, get those CEUs and have a great time doing it.
Definitely. Jake, you're providing our audience here with some freebies. One is 5 ways to keep kids off drugs, and the other one's Guide to Thrive in High School Without Drugs. So will you just share a little bit about what they can download?
Yes. So the 5 ways to keep kids off drugs is a great resource for educators, parents, caregivers. How do you start that conversation? And what does prevention look like in your immediate relationship with that student? People are always nervous about having the conversation. So this gives you easy ways to start the conversation and posture it in a way where your students actually want to listen. They're very interested in it instead of it feeling like a lecture. The Guide to Thrive Without Using Substances, that one is probably for your school counselors that are listening, maybe the vice principal who's doing disciplinary things. If that's your role, then sometimes these students need resources just to try to open their mind to a new decision. Or the students who are, maybe they're looking for social opportunities and they're being pressured to go to parties or things like that. This can really open their eyes into why living a drug-free life as a student is such a good idea. They can run through these quick, 10 pages and feel really empowered to make really great choices. So keep it in your office.
So we'll make sure it's not only on the show notes, but also on joshtamber.com. So you can easily click that and get the link for these wonderful resources. So thank you for that, Jake. I know those who are listening are going to be impacted in a positive way through those resources. All right. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all my guests. Obviously, our topic is a little different than some of the other ones I've had in the past, which I absolutely love, Jake. So for our leaders that are listening or our aspiring leaders, if there's something they can do in regards to this topic tomorrow or next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you recommend?
I would say that if you are, whatever you're working on, something within the school day, or maybe you've got that side hustle you're working on outside of the school day to help supplement your income. Maybe it's a volunteer opportunity that you're really passionate about and you end up doing, and you're feeling like I felt at times, this is too much for one person. My plate is full. I would encourage everyone to reflect on this one question. What students or resources are around me that I can pull from to lighten my load a little bit? Because what I found, I have pulled students who have helped me do video editing. They have helped write articles for me, some that have even hosted my own podcast episodes, interviewing their friends for content, all these things, putting on events, whatever it is. The same concept that we use for peer-led clubs is realizing that students, sometimes, even if they do things half as good as us, it will go twice as far. And so is there a way that you can equip the students around you to support you with whatever you're doing? Because that can provide a great leadership opportunity for them, and it can lighten your load a little bit, which I'm sure everyone could use.
Oh my gosh, yes. I want to just echo what you're saying, Jake. I mean, we had an opportunity to pull our students into staff meetings to share out about like student survey results. And that was super powerful to hear from the students. But it also took load off of us as admin. And we knew the impact was going to be different, right? Because it's come from the source. Or adding kids to different committees that we had that would meet after school and having a student voice for it. Not that they would be there for every topic and all points of the conversation, because sometimes those leaders aren't always necessary, but at least they had a component of voice and ownership in the campus decisions that went really, really far. And of course, the leadership groups that we had available to them too, to be a part of and make some really crucial decisions, and also have an opportunity to speak and give feedback about what's going on campus. I mean, any way that you can add a student component to that or leadership is huge. So I love that answer.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. And I would love to just say thank you to your audience. So if you're working in education, one thing that people ask me sometimes is like, where did the name Vive 18 come from? And our co-founder,
Good question.
Our co-founder Tomas Barraza had said, Jake, Vive or Vive means to live in 7 different languages. And we're not just helping students avoid drug use, we're helping them live their best life. And the people who are listening here, you're involved in education, you're helping young people, you're passionate about a cause and leading, is you are absolutely helping students lead better lives. And it's not just about what they won't do, it's about all the incredible things that they will do because of your influence. So thank you, Josh. And thank you, everyone who listens to this podcast, because you're incredible.
Oh, I love that message, man. I want folks to connect with you too. So, Jake, where else? I mean, obviously, I've got for the YouTube audience, they've been seeing your website. For those who are, on the audio platforms, it's vive18.com. And that's also in the show notes and on my website. But where else can they connect with you if they want more information?
Yeah, if you're on social, probably Instagram is where we hang out the most.
Sure.
But Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube. Like if students are hanging there, we want to be a positive influence there. So if you're on those as well, Facebook too. But you can email me directly if you have any questions, jake@vive18.com. Go through that website to make sure we see it, because y'all are very busy. Our team's really busy. So if you want it to not get missed, email or the website is the best way.
Perfect. So we'll make sure, like I said, it's easy for everyone to access, because I really want people to tap into that. Plus, I think you made a good point too, Jake, that we don't really think about, and it kind of just popped in my head too. I do a keynote that's on mental health and healthy habits for our leaders. And sometimes I ask about like things that they do as far as their mental health. And I always get jokingly, a rum and Coke comment or wine or something like that. And it gets a laugh from the audience because, someone shouted it out. But at the same point, it kind of makes me cringe, because I'm thinking, okay, if that's truly a strategy that you've implemented for a stressful profession, that's going to be hurtful in the long run. And so, I love the fact that these strategies are universal. And you said it earlier, for any age. So I just want to lift those up to our adults that if you're struggling with mental health or you're struggling with substances, the strategies that Jake's talking about is also something that you can, help your own life and get you back on track to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, well said, Josh. Like, we don't
All right,
really
man.
get there alone either,
No,
it's
it's that
asking for
community
help
piece.
every step of the way. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jake, I just think the world of you, man. I appreciate you. You have a huge heart, a lot of passion. It was evident just within seconds of meeting you in California. So super excited to see the work that you do, how you're impacting kids, adults throughout this country. And I can't wait to see you just blow up even further as you're doing cruises and conferences and communities. You're doing so much. So appreciate all the work that you're doing. And of course, joining me here on Aspire to Lead.
All right, thanks, Josh.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.